Smart Alec Show podcast.
Smart Alec Show, baby!
Dive into it more, bro. Back to the Goldman Sachs stuff. So what'd you do for those 2 summers, man? You kind of dived in already how you got it, but like what functions were you working in and what kind of day-to-day tasks were you doing?
Yeah, got you. So both years I came back to the same team. However, I was covering like different products essentially. So I was the credit origination analyst, which sat under their controllers branch. So essentially with that credit origination team, when you think of a bank, obviously how they make money is through loans, things like that. So essentially with that team, whatever was originated, so we would have the banking team, for example, say like, I don't know, American Airlines needed to like raise like $400 million, whatever it might be. They would kind of work through the deals with that. And then through my team, we'd be like, okay, like here's the risk associated with it, et cetera. How are we going to keep it? Because all of that money actually gets allocated through different portfolios. So with my book for the first summer, it was investment grade stuff. So like investment grade being like, A graded loans,
Okay.
Whereas you might have like the more risky stuff at like a B level. So essentially with that, they'd be like, Mayor, like pretty much day over day, you have to keep in mind how much risk we have allocated to this portfolio and how much money we have to allocate through like for losses. So for example, like for this summer with COVID happening, it was a bit more crazy because all of these banks all of these different companies are going, taking massive hits. So our allowance they call it ALLL, or basically provisions for people who might not be too like finance focused. Is basically, the premise is basically if I say I borrow you like $100, obviously I'm expecting that money back, but just in case, I'm going to take $25 and put it aside. So if you don't, in the future, you don't give me all of my money, it's kind of, I don't take as big of a hit.
For sure.
So essentially, that's kind of what they had me doing. I was working super closely with the credit team to allocate different provisions for pretty much every loan in that book. And that was all investment grade stuff. And the other side of that too, like I mentioned, it was 2 different sides. They were launching what was called Marcus, which I was super big into because like I mentioned, I'm all about that financial literacy. And for people who don't know, Marcus is essentially their online bank platform. So it comes with a saving platform where it's a high yield interest. So where like your normal bank might be giving you 0.03 interest, whatever it might be. At the peak of Marcus, they might have been giving you like 1.6% interest, 2.25% interest. And it's also the partnership with Apple Card. So on a day-to-day, we were kind of working with Apple as well to kind of build out how the different financials of the Apple Card would work out. So my first summer, it was cool because that product wasn't public yet. So I couldn't even talk about it to anyone. And I was just out here like working on it and how it worked. And then the second year I came back and it was a public product. So everybody already had access to the card. So it was crazy to see how much had changed essentially. So those are the 2 sides of the coin. So we had like the market side as well as the more like credit focused and business side, where we had like the different loans being raised and the different credit and such.
That's what's up, bro. That's crazy that like you knew the Apple Card was coming and this and that, and you just can't talk about it. You know what I mean?
Bro, it's crazy how in the banks how like secretive they are. Because literally, like even on my own team, there were some people I couldn't mention it to, and I was like,
that's wild.
Actually crazy. Yeah, everything has like a internal code name essentially. So instead of being the Apple Card, it would be blank name.
Yeah,
so that would be the only way to refer to it.
Shit. So why is that, bro? Like what are the different functions or the different teams that you're not allowed to like say certain things to? Is it because they're on the other end of like what's going on or what do you mean?
Yeah, it's really a mix of things. So on a couple of different levels. So for one, for example, like my traders, for example, some of the loans I couldn't talk to them about because they were trading it on an active basis.
Yeah.
So throughout the day, if I was like, because they trade in the secondary market. So you trade loans the same way you can trade stocks, essentially. So they were trading in the secondary market. And if I came to them and I was like, like Delta is looking like this today, they could basically use that to their advantage to make massive profits with
info.
Be wrong. And then on my team, certain people are covering different things. So just to keep like the integrity of the product, it was best to just keep the people working directly on it. To keep them updated with what was going on. So if I was working on the Apple Card, for example, and somebody else was working on like just the straight loans, like you don't need to overlap the 2. So like they don't have any of that knowledge and bring it somewhere else too. Because again, it was the Apple Card was a really big product for them with that partnership with Apple. So everything was really like they were really trying to keep it like super like closely knit and internally. Yeah,
it's wild, bro. But that makes me feel better though, and whoever listens to this, I'm sure they'll feel better too, because it's like the fact that y'all still uphold that integrity, to not give away that insider info, and there's very strict regulations in terms of like who you can tell what. That makes the general public feel better, and like more trusting of banks. You know what I mean? So that's what's up, and that's wild, bro. That's so wild that you as an intern got to work on the Apple Card, bro. Like that's badass, man. That you had like an active role in something that ended up being a huge deal.
Honestly, and I think that's something else. Like to anybody listening who might be considering like an internship either at Goldman or like a similar company, I can honestly say like for your internship, you're actually doing like real work.
Yeah.
I know some of my other friends, like they might have been at different places and they were like, yo, like I feel like I'm not really like being utilized.
Mm-hmm.
I know like the work I was doing was literally like what my analyst was doing before I came. And then when I came in, she essentially showed me like, okay, here's how to analyze what I was working with. Here's how to do it. So then she could basically help out our VP throughout the summer while I covered her tasks fully.
That's what's up, bro. Yeah, it feels good knowing that like you're actually making a difference, right? Like the work you're doing isn't like just busy work. So like for me, like I worked on a couple things at ESPN where I ended up seeing it like on TV. Like I didn't make the actual graphics, but like I was the one who had to like communicate between the different stakeholders in terms of like this is what we need to put on the UFC graphic. Here are the different slots we need to put it in, et cetera, et cetera. So then when you see it come to life on TV, like that's dope.
Don't be such a smart Alec.